Andrew McCART, IFLTV. You already know I'm always delighted to be joined by my good friend stateside, Mr. Dan Rafael. Dan, as always, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Good to be with you as always, Andrew.
It's kind of weird me asking how you're doing because we speak before I push record and I ask you how you're doing and we go in a little discussion. So it's kind of stupid of me asking you how you're doing, but it's all for the interview purpose.
All
But
good.
anyway, it's all good. Yeah, listen, like I said to you before I pushed record there, the show in Saudi was heavy American based with a lot of fighters on there, some fantastic fights. America have the youngest world champion. We've got a new world champion in welterweight division in Devin Haney. David Benavidez going up to cruiserweight, it sounds like. So there's a lot to talk about from that fight card. I do want to focus on the four main fights itself. And I'm going to start with Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes. And I've only got one word for it, and that's wow. I mean, you've got more words in your vocabulary than me, Dan, so I'll let you just take it away.
I mean, what can you say? It was a tremendous fight. I think most people looking at it going into the fight on paper thought, oh yeah, this is gonna be a good fight. I mean, and I was as I'm watching these guys put on a bona fide fight of the year type fight, I was thinking in my mind the interview that I had had with Abdullah Mason like a couple of days before he left to go to Saudi Arabia for the show. I had him on my podcast, and we had done a Zoom call with each other, and he was really good. And I asked him about Noakes' style and sort of what he expected, because in my mind, I'm like, having seen both Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes fight a number of times before their matchup, my thought was, no way this is going to be anything but a good fight. And I asked him about how he thought the style matchup would be, and he said, you know what, this is going to be a fun fight for all you guys. It's going to be a fun fight for us to be in. It's going to be a fun fight for you guys to watch. I'm paraphrasing what he said. And as they're doing what they're doing, that comment from him popped into my mind. And I'm like, the kid was right. It was a great battle. I mean, it was an all out slugfest. I mean, they stepped on the gas pedal from the opening bell and never really relented. There was no massive drama, just from the standpoint there was no knockdowns. Nobody seemed badly hurt. The one partial drama was the accidental headbutt that opened up the cut over Sam Noakes' eye that became a problem. And, so he toughed it out, though. And by the time the fight was over, he was bleeding from his mouth, bleeding from his nose also. But it was a great fight. Credit to both guys. But Abdullah Mason was the clear winner. Sam was competitive, and he sure showed a great heart, and I'd love to see him back in action. But Abdullah Mason, I think, separated himself in terms of just his skills were better. They both had heart. They both had power. They both did a lot of good things, but he was a little quicker and a little more accurate, and just seemed like the better guy in the ring. He's obviously a lot younger, but that was a great matchup. And with the victory, Abdullah Mason becomes the youngest male world champion active today. He's only 21 years old. The previous youngest was the junior middleweight title holder, Xander Zayas, who was 22 years old when he won that belt back in July. Now he's 23. But so that means you've got an Abdullah Mason at age 21, by far and away the youngest of the active male world champions. That's a great accomplishment for the young man. And it was done, Andrew, like 4 years to the month since his pro debut. So that's the type of, to go from pro debut to world champion in 4 years, that's still pretty quick. I mean, that doesn't happen a lot in boxing. I mean, there's examples, but that's the Lomachenkos of the world, the Usyks of the world, guys that had these crazy amateur backgrounds who were obviously a bit older when they turned pro. Mason was not that guy, but he's such an enjoyable guy to watch. Could have made the fight a lot easier, if you ask me, because he had the size advantage, he had the reach advantage, he had the speed advantage. He's a southpaw. If he could have laid back a little bit more and outboxed him and still made it entertaining, but he has the kind of style I like this. I've said this to you probably before. The guys I like to watch are guys that have really outstanding boxing skills and they can show them off, but they also like to fight. And so while I'm not comparing him to these fighters, this is what I think of guys I always love to watch. Guys who could box, but guys who could really fight and like to fight. It was their mentality. Abdullah Mason's mentality is to get in there and mix it up. I think about guys like Sugar Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, Meldrick Taylor. Those are guys I've always loved to watch because they had the great skills, but they would get in there and mix it up. And Abdullah Mason in his first big fight was exactly that sort of the way he went about his business. He can make it a lot easier on himself, but he has that something in him that just wants to rumble. His corner and his team are going to have to tell him it's okay to do that a little bit, but don't do it too much. You're gonna burn yourself out. He's only 21. He should have a long career and don't have to take unnecessary risks like that. He can be crowd pleasing, but maybe a little bit too much.
I want to pick it back off something you said there. Now, for me, when you said there wasn't much drama in there in terms of knockdowns, but it almost felt like when I was watching the fight, I was like, something's going to happen. It had me on my seat. I was like, somebody's going to get knocked down here. Someone's going to get dropped. And the fact that I was happy that both men got to the 12th round and they gave us that 12 round slugfest. But it wasn't, slugfest is probably the wrong word for it because it was, I thought that was a great advert for boxing.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
the referee never got involved, I think, once that I can remember, and just split them up and whatnot. Maybe did tie them up a little bit, but when the referee's not involved and he's not trying to split guys up from holding and all this, that, and the next thing, guys were fighting inside the pocket. For me, that fight was a great advert for boxing.
Well, even when they were involved in these rough exchanges, I mean, there was a little bit of holding, but it wasn't like excessive to the point where they had to get the referee involved. They were able to punch out of it. Guys were taking a little couple seconds of a break, to grab on, but that's part of boxing. I don't know. There's nobody can really have a problem with that. It wasn't to the excess where it gets frustrating. You got to pry them apart because they're afraid to get hit or they don't want to mix it up. So Noakes and Abdullah Mason, employed that every once in a while when necessary, but they made a really good fight. Both guys had opportunities. Both guys landed a lot of good punches. And as I said, Abdullah Mason will, go on to bigger and better things as a world champion now. I'm sure that at some point Top Rank will take him home to Cleveland, Ohio, his hometown, which hasn't had, a world champion in quite a number of years. And even in the defeat, I think Sam Noakes raised his stock because they had, and Abdullah Mason spoke to me about this also prior to the fight. Both guys had certain level of opponents on their record that were like maybe recognizable to diehards, journeyman-ish or experienced veterans as they were building up their record that were meant to, test them or give them rounds, that type of thing. But they never faced a guy like the other guy, like a legitimate either prospect or, rising contender, however you want to describe them, until they fought each other. And they did bring out the best in each other. And okay, so Noakes lost the fight, but you know what? Who would not want to watch him fight again? I don't think he's got anything to be ashamed of. He's got a great heart. He's exciting. And I can't imagine that after a little bit of a rest that Frank Warren won't, get him back into another meaningful fight.
A lot of people were saying they would love to see that fight again. Are you one of them? Or you did say that Abdullah Mason probably go to Cleveland on to bigger and better things, but do you want to see that fight again? Does it make sense?
It doesn't make sense right now. I mean, look, the point of the fight was two guys that were stepping up in class, fighting for a world title. Well, Mason won the fight. No one's disputing it was not a controversial decision. It's competitive, fair enough, but there's no debate that he was the winner. And so unless somebody threw like crazy money at them, I guess, if Turki Al-Sheikh, let's say, really, really loved the fight and was just, really, really wanted to see it again and he decided to open up the checkbook, I guess they would probably take the rematch. But if you're Abdullah Mason, why do I need to do that again? I can go about my business. I mean, I'm not saying down the road, maybe a rematch will make sense at some point, in a couple of years or, a few more fights, but I wouldn't be unhappy if they did a rematch, but I don't think it's necessary. Not every fight that's a good fight needs a rematch.
No, I probably agree with you because sometimes the rematches don't work out the same way as the first fight, as we spoke about with the Conor Ben and Chris Eubank.
Yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
the rematches don't quite work out. Now that brings me on to probably, and I'm going to agree with Eddie Hearn on this one. I'm pretty sure you heard Eddie Hearn say that Jesse Bam Rodriguez is a lot of fighters' favorite fighter and a lot of pundits' favorite fighter, and he's definitely one of my favorite fighters, Bam Rodriguez. Now, what a performance! I mean, he made a world champion. He made that look easy. It's safe to say
Yeah.
against Martinez there, and talk to me about how good Bam Rodriguez is how good from the stateside perspective. How good is this kid?
I don't think it has to be a stateside perspective. It should be the world perspective. Whether you're in the UK like Eddie Hearn is, who's of course biased because he's his promoter, or you're just a fan of the sport. I mean, Jesse Bam Rodriguez is a superb talent. He's very clearly one of the very best elite pound for pound level fighters in boxing. He can make the very legitimate argument he should be if you're into pound for pound lists. I don't put him in the top 3 yet because that's still occupied by the top guys, the elite of the elite, which is in whatever order you choose to put them. And that's Terrence Crawford, Alexander Usyk, Naoya Inoue. But in the next couple of guys down, next 2-3 guys down, whether you're talking about a Dmitry Bivol or Arthur Beterbiev, there's Bam Rodriguez. I mean, those are the next group of guys. And he's certainly at that level. He's young at 25. He is not taking punishment. He wins his fights going away. I can't even think of a fight that I've watched of his that you could say was a tough fight or there was even a debate about whether he won the fight because either he's knocking guys out or he's winning by a landslide in terms of the decision. and he's doing it against really outstanding fighters, other champions or former champions, guys with a lot of respect in the business. I mean, when he first came on the scene as a world in a world title fight, taking a fight with Carlos Cuadras on short notice and moving up in weight and winning to get his first world title, that was a very impressive thing. And he, did the same thing against Srisak at Sarangisai, a very well-respected veteran. But they were a little older, okay. But then he's done it against other guys that were either champions or other guys who were still really good. Sonny Edwards, who he beat down in a unification at flyweight, knocked out Juan Francisco Estrada. Yeah, okay, he was a little bit older, but he was still the actual champion, the lineal champion. He had taken 2 of 3 against Roman Gonzalez, and he didn't just beat him, he basically destroyed him. I mean, that was and then he goes in with an undefeated champion in Cafu and wins by knockout. I mean, he is spectacular. He is right now in I mean, I guess he's in his prime because he's the amount of championship fights he's already had. But the guy's right now, he's writing his Hall of Fame resume. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, what can you say? He would fit in any era in boxing of those weight classes. He has probably the best footwork in boxing. I would say it's maybe like him and Usyk in terms of the footwork. I mean, he just can move. He's not like super, super fast, but he's very effective.
Fluent, isn't he?
Yeah, very fluid. He is a southpaw also, so that gives a different look to a lot of opponents. He's got power. And the thing I also love about Ben Rodriguez, and it's not just about this particular fight, just all the fights I've watched. When he's in the boxing match, you can't tell if he's about to knock a guy out, if he's been hurt, if he's 5 rounds up, if he's 2 rounds down. I mean, he's just the calm, cool, collected Mr. Poise, I call him. Just absolutely calm at all times. Got a great corner in Robert Garcia. Obviously, Eddie Hearn has done an outstanding job in getting him the types of fights that they've put him into. And if you're Eddie, it's got to be a great feeling as a promoter, because certain times we have a guy that's a popular fighter where it was a draw, and the gravy train is rolling along and you're bringing in money. You want to kind of be a little more careful when you're matching him for obvious reasons. You're protecting the investment. You're protecting the ticket seller. Eddie Hearn got to be like feeling so free and easy when it comes to Bam, because you don't have to do that. There's absolutely nobody that you don't put the guy in with and that you're going to worry. I mean, it'll get to that point eventually if he moves up and he's fighting the likes of a Nakatani or a Inoue, people like that. But at the moment, at 115 pounds, when he was at 112 pounds, you don't have to worry about anything. He's going to be a massive favorite against anybody. And Eddie can just sit back and enjoy the fight. And the biggest problem that he probably has is trying to get the opponents to come and sign to fight the guy. But he's a great fighter to watch. And if you ever get a chance to interview him or know him a little bit outside the ring, like I've had the opportunity to do so, just a great guy to deal with. Just first class all around. I don't have words to speak my high regard for him any further than that.
Now, you said that 115 pounds wipes the floor with everybody. So that you mentioned Nakatani and Inui. Now, there is an IBF super flyweight world title fight on the 27th of December against Perez and, is it Taraji?
It's Willebaldo Garcia Perez against Taraji, who's a former champ that's coming up in weight. And they're going to do that match on the undercard of the Noya Inoue fight against Picasso. And Eddie would love to make that match and give Bam the opportunity to become undisputed. And, the other guy who's in the fight, whoever wins December 27th, would also have the opportunity to become the undisputed champion. And with all due respect to Taraji, who's a borderline Hall of Famer, who's had a lot of accomplishments in the lighter weight classes at flyweight and junior flyweight, and even Willebaldo Garcia. I mean, honestly, whoever wins that fight, Bam's going to be a 5-1 favorite. I mean, it's just, to me, it's if he comes in shape and is prepared and no issues, to me, that's write that down already. I mean, that's, to me, it's an easy win, whoever he's fighting in that fight. And frankly, when he fought Puma Martinez in the fight that took place on Saturday, it could have been for the undisputed title. Remember last year when Puma went to Japan, he had a title and he fought Ioka, who had a title. They unified the IBF and the WBA belts, and it was a 2024 Fight of the Year contender. Spectacular fight. If you didn't see it, you can easily find it on YouTube. It's an amazing, outstanding battle. He won the decision, well deserved. He took a rematch with Ioka instead of the IBF mandatory because they were putting Willebaldo Garcia on him, or maybe it was the other guy. I forget who Willebaldo fought for the vacant title. But the point was, It was either, do I go and take a very lucrative rematch against Ioka and give up my title, or do I keep both titles and take a mandatory for a fraction of the money? Obviously, he took the bigger fight for the money and the exposure, and he went back into Japan and defended only the WBA title. So that left the IBF title vacant, which Willibaldo won. But if IBF had allowed him to keep the belt, he would have been fighting Bam Rodriguez with 2 titles, and Bam had the other 2. Would have been for undisputed. It wasn't, and so hopefully, whatever happens on December 27th, the winner of that fight will agree to fight Bam Rodriguez, and they'll make that fight sometime in the early part of next year, and he'll have the opportunity to become undisputed. And then, as he said in his post-fight that Eddie said, then it's off the bantamweight to see if we can do some damage up there, and eventually, maybe end of that year, perhaps, Inoue.
Well, Junto Nakatani's a bantamweight, and Inoue is super bantamweight,
Well,
but the talks have gone up to featherweight.
Nakatani
So,
gave up the bantamweight titles and is now at 122.
is he going up to super bantam?
So he's on that undercard on December 27th when Noe Inoue's in the main event against Picasso, and that other fight that we just talked about with Willibaldo and for that Taraji, that's on that card also. But in that other fight on that card is Nakatani making his debut at 122.
Oh.
So Bam is got some catching up to do in terms of the weight classes. But as he said steadfastly all along, he's like, if they offer me that fight, I'm taking it. I mean, he's not going to. It's not a matter of like he's going to go to bantamweight, of course. But if the opportunity to fight one of those big guys, big names, I should say, at 122 comes across his desk, so to speak, he'll take that fight. Listen, in August of last year, I went out to California to cover Terrence Crawford's fight against Israel Majimov, and Bam was at the fight. He had Robert Garcia, his trainer, I guess, had some guys on the card, and Bam was out there to support and hang out and everything like that. And I sat down with Bam. We were like just hanging at in the hotel like restaurant having lunch, and we weren't doing an interview or anything. We were just sort of shooting the shit. And he was telling me like, and I hadn't heard this before. So when I heard this, I was like, I got all excited. We were talking about like what his future looked like a little bit. This is just a conversation. It wasn't, like I said, it was not an interview. And he was very specific. He goes, I want Inoue. That's my dream fight. And he also talked about wanting Nakatani. And I got all excited about that. So this is not something that just came up, in the last couple of weeks as he's, winning this title fight on Saturday. This is something he's been thinking about for a while. And, if he gets that opportunity, those are the 2 guys I can see, up from flyweight to junior featherweight, that would be guys that you could think about. Maybe he doesn't win the fight. Those are the even type of fights he can be in. Everybody else, though, I think he wipes the floor. And what was more impressive even about what he did on Saturday is all the sort of, I won't say pressure, but just what was going on in his life besides boxing. Remember, he came to Saudi Arabia. His girlfriend's back home. They know that she's due to give birth to their son any day. I mean, they made a decision. I mean, obviously they know that she's pregnant and she's due soon. So they understood that when he left to go to the fight in Saudi Arabia, that she could deliver the baby while he's away, which, you want to be around for the birth of your kid. I mean, that's a big deal. But because of the fact that the amount of money he was making, 7 figures, which is going to set them up even greater for their life, and the fact that he had this incredible opportunity to add a huge piece of a legacy to grab a 3rd title, they made the decision as a family, like, I'm going to go and do the fight. And you know what? He skipped, if you remember, if you were following along during fight week, the PR team, they were sending out like photo links and some quotes and stuff from the different events. When it came to do the open workout on Wednesday, Bam Rodriguez skipped it. So there was nothing from him quote-wise. He was not in any of the photos. And the reason was because his wife went into labor, his girlfriend, I guess. They're not officially married, but they've been together a long time. They have an older, a son that's like a toddler. Or I take it back, a daughter that's a toddler. So she was going into labor. So he skipped the workout to watch on FaceTime. She has the baby, and, he was kind of depressed and kind of bummed out that he missed it. But by the same token, additionally motivated to go out there and get the win for the new family member and to do the things that are important to him, which is, make a big amount of money to support the family and do it for them. And so I'm sure that was on his mind, and he went out there and he looked spectacular.
Crazy, man. That's when you talk about mentality, man. For somebody to go, sometimes that could even make or break somebody. Your focus isn't on your opponent. Your focus can be back home, thousands of miles away, and that's when you can slip up in a fight.
Yeah.
The fact that he went out there and made that fight look easy.
It's not like he was doing a fight like, she's in San Antonio pregnant and he's doing a fight in Houston and he can be home in a couple of hours, whatever. He's on the other side of the world. I mean, not to say it's the same situation, but when my son was about to be born, I actually went to New York City to cover Nonito Donaire against Guillermo Rigondeaux. And my wife was, a few days away from what was supposed to be the due date. And I remember like, okay, I'm going to go to the fight, but I'm only like a train ride away from home. So I can be home in 2-3 hours. And so I knew what the train schedule was in case I get the call, I can, make sure I get out of there quick. You know what? And then, sure enough, I get home on the Sunday from the fight, write my Monday column. This is when I'm still at ESPN, and go to bed super late and get waken up by my wife at 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it was. It's time to go, and had the baby later in the day. But I wasn't halfway around the world like Bam was. So yeah. I'm sure that was on his mind, no doubt. Now, he was probably relieved because the baby had been born on Wednesday, but even still, I'm sure he was, he even said in the ring afterwards, I could cry because I missed the birth of my son. But, it motivated him. He went there and he kicked some ass. He looked absolutely tremendous. Did everything he wanted to do. And by the way, 1-punch knockout. I mean, he was going for he could have easily won a 12-round decision. He had Martinez under control from the first bell. And instead he did what I always criticize fighters for. When you're outclassing a guy, take a step forward and try to get him out of there. And Bam Rodriguez did that. Didn't take too many chances, but did enough and just wrecked the guy with a big shot to get him out. And if he had just let it go the distance and was more tedious about it, he would have still won the fight, but it wouldn't have been as lauded, let's say, as it is now a couple of days post-fight, because he went in there and he did step on that gas a little bit and got him out of there.
Fabulous. Absolutely amazing. I like I said, I agree with Eddie Hearn. He's probably one of my favourite fighters at the moment in time, if not my favourite fighter. Now, that brings me on to Brian Norman and Devin Haney. Now, was Haney too good, or did Brian Norman didn't show up? How did you see that fight? I mean, for me, it seemed like Brian Norman looked a little bit... I don't know what it was. When I was watching him in the ring about to come face to face with Devin Haney, he didn't look like... I don't know. It felt like something was off. But do you feel that, or do you feel like Devin Haney was just too good?
Well, I don't know if I look at it either way like that. I don't think he was necessarily off. I think what happened was when he got hit in the nose and dropped, that changed the whole fight for him. Mm-hmm. Number one, he knew he could be hurt by Devin Haney, who goes into the fight with a reputation, unfounded in my opinion, as a guy that can't hurt you. I may be biased because I was sitting 5 feet from the ring, right in front of my face, when he absolutely put Antonio Moran into another dimension with one of the most cataclysmic knockouts I've ever witnessed in person. Just a sick knockout. I picked it as the knockout of the year from Devin Haney. And Antonio Moran is not a world champion, but he's a very experienced veteran, fought a lot of guys. And I never seen him get knocked out like that. So those who say Devin Haney can't punch, I'm not saying he's, Ernie Shavers or George Foreman or anybody like that, but don't make the mistake that Devin Haney doesn't carry some power. Now, we hadn't seen it because he's first now fighting at welterweight for the first time. But my point is, he hurt Brian Norman with that shot that dropped him. And I think that changed the game plan. And Brian Norman was like, oh, shit, this guy has got more punching power than maybe I had expected. So I think that had an impact on it. And listen, Devin Haney is a vastly experienced fighter. He's got a tremendous resume. He's fought a lot of good fighters. I know people like to rag on him about what happened with Ryan Garcia. But you also have to look at it. He fought a guy that was 4+ pounds overweight, and he was on PEDs. I mean, and he still got a majority decision in an otherwise very, very close fight other than the knockdowns. And it got changed to a no contest, rightfully so. So I do think that Devin gets a bad rap. Yes, the fight that came after that against Jose Ramirez that took place in, a few months ago, earlier this year, was absolutely horrible to watch. It was an absolute eyesore. But he still won basically every single round of the fight against Ramirez. And, is he the most exciting guy in the world? No. But he wins. He's still undefeated because of that no contest. And a lot of people were picking Brian Norman, I don't think necessarily because they didn't think Devin was a good fighter, but because Brian has looked so spectacular in his knockouts, in his title fights as a welterweight. And people questioned what Haney was going to do coming up, particularly getting dropped by left hooks by Garcia. It's not, if you're familiar with Brian Norman's game, his best punch is probably the left hook. And so, there was a lot of people that thought Brian could win, but I don't think he was out of sorts. I just think he ran into a guy that hurt him early and was able to easily outbox him for those first, probably 6 or 7 rounds where I thought Haney looked really, really good. And then Haney got a little more defensive minded and played it safe a little bit. And so the second half of the fight was maybe not as interesting as the first half. Neither one of the guys threw a lot of punches, but Devin Haney was more active and landed more punches than Brian Norman, who just was out of sorts from as soon as the knockdown happened. And Haney got the rightful win. And now he's going to be a problem at welterweight for a lot of guys because, he looked a lot better physically. I think the weight strain on him had taken its toll at 35 and 40. He even talked about it. His dad has been telling him for a while, we got to move up, but there was so much opportunity and so much money in the two smaller weight classes that he put off to move up to welterweight. But he looked a lot better in my mind in the division. And frankly, welterweight's not a very stacked division right now. So he can probably be around and do some things there, because it's not, this is not the welterweight division of Felix Trinidad and Oscar De La Hoya and Ike Quartey. It's not the welterweight division of the primes of, Keith Thurman and Errol Spence and all those PBC guys that were doing damage, Sean Porter and even Terrence Crawford when he was at welterweight. It's a much, much lesser division now, and I think Devin Haney can thrive in it.
One person that wasn't impressed was Conor Benn ringside. Did you see him falling asleep on Eddie Hearn's shoulder? I mean, he does get his criticism, Devin Haney, but what did you make of Conor Benn's comments that he's boring and he might not want to fight him?
That who might not want to fight him? Conor might not want to.
Yeah.
Well, okay, a couple things there. Conor is totally like every one of us. You, me, Conor, Eddie Hearn, whoever watches. Everybody's entitled to their opinion about what they like and don't like about a particular fighter style. And if Conor Benn thinks he's boring, fair enough. He doesn't have to watch the guy fight. However, it ain't up to Conor Benn that he won't fight Devin Haney. Devin Haney is the guy that's got the title. Devin Haney is the guy that's the former undisputed lightweight champion. Devin Haney is the former WBC junior welterweight champion. Devin Haney is undefeated. Devin Haney has never been associated in any way, shape, or form with performance-enhancing drugs. Devin Haney is a guy that has a tremendous amount of accomplishment in his career. Conor Benn was out for a year and a half or whatever long it was because of a PED test, 2 tests that were failed, number one. And number two, yes, he did a great job in winning the rematch against Chris Eubank. It was obviously a huge victory for him. But let us not forget, he lost the first fight, as great of a fight as it was. And he has no other real accomplishment in his career, okay? Conor Benn has never won the British title. Conor Benn has never won the Commonwealth title. He's never won the European title. To my recollection, he has never challenged for any of those titles. He has never won a world title. So who is he to say, I'm not going to fight him? No, bro. It's the other way around. The champ gets to pick the contender or the challenger if they're not in a mandatory situation. So he has a bad attitude about that, if you ask me. And for Eddie Hearn to sit there and say he's boring and this and that, which I saw some interviews with Eddie also, again, Eddie's opinion, totally allowed to have that opinion. But it wasn't that long ago that Eddie Hearn was singing his praises when he was Devin Haney's promoter, and as soon as he's not his promoter, he's shitting all over him. So I don't really respect that part of things. Don't tell me you love the guy and how great he is when you're his promoter, and now that you don't have him, you shit all over the guy. That's not fair. Hey, but the thing is, his style has not changed in between the time that Eddie was the promoter for Devin Haney and not being the promoter for Devin Haney. So was he boring when you promoted him and now he's more boring? Or, did you love him then and you change your style, or is it just because you're not making money on him anymore?
I suppose that's a question I can ask Eddie at some point.
So let's see Conor Benn step up and fight a real guy at welterweight and earn a shot at the title.
Well, I think the Ryan Garcia Barrios winner, I think he's probably aiming for that. I think he wanted the Barrios, but now it looks like Ryan I seen I don't know how real that contract sign was on his Instagram or wherever it was that he signed that contract. But
so he signed whatever he signed for that fight. But if you understand how boxing deals are made, just because one guy signs a piece of paper and says I signed, the fight is a long way from done. He still has to his side for the bout agreement may be done, but you still have to get the other fighter has to take care of his business, which I don't think there's an issue on the PBC side, but they got to finish Barrios with his people. Golden Boy Promotions and PBC/TGB, they got to get their deal done. You have also the broadcast entities have to make sure they're on the same page because it's going to be a joint venture, which is PBC's platform, which is Prime Video, and Golden Boy's platform, which is DAZN. They got to get their deal together. So it's not just one contract that a guy signs. There's multiple facets to getting the deal done. So perhaps, and also, by the way, there's still a difference of opinion between Golden Boy and Ryan Garcia that they're trying to iron out and memorialize as far as how many fights he has left with the company. Golden Boy will tell you he's still under contract for, perhaps the rest of his natural born life. And Ryan Garcia is saying, this is my last fight with you. Somewhere, there's probably, there's a gray area in there. They got to work that out. So, he can sign whatever he wants, but that's not done yet. But I'll tell you this, if he does beat Mario Barrios and the fight gets done for February and Devin Haney has won this fight, maybe he'll take another fight. The bigger fight, no disrespect to Conor, is going to be that rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. that because of all the controversy from what happened in the first fight, the steroid stuff, the missing the weight, and also it would be a unification fight because they would both have world titles. If Ryan were to beat Barrios, he'd be the WBC champion. Devin Haney, of course, won the WBO title. So I don't think Conor Benn is a guarantee to fight either one of those guys.
Well, listen, it's going to be a good 2026 when we find out what fights are being made. Now, David Benavidez is the monster that we all know he is. I mean, again, Anthony Yard probably didn't show up, maybe. I don't know. What was it? But just
No, Anthony Yard showed up. That's who he is.
But Dave, talking about David Benavidez then, talking about, because we've only got 6 minutes left, 7 minutes of this interview. So, David Benavidez, light heavyweight. Now, his post-fight interview, he mentioned that he is going up to cruiserweight to face Zurdo. Now, your thoughts on the fight itself, and then talk to me about his comments at the end there.
Well, I mean, David did what he was supposed to do. He went down there with a guy that he's just better than, and he beat him. He broke him down, and he beat him up a little bit, and he knocked him out. I thought the fight would go longer than that, but I never for a moment thought that David wouldn't win the fight. I have a lot of respect for Yard. He's been willing to fight the best guys, but when he stepped up to a certain level, he's been beaten. I mean, it's been a weird career. He's got a whole bunch of knockouts against guys that are just whatevers. He's got the trilogy with Lyndon Arthur, who's probably the best guy he ever fought other than the world title fights. He did win that trilogy 2-1, but the 3 times he stepped up, granted, they were against super top guys. Kovalev, when he was still good by knockout, even though he was winning that fight until Kovalev got him in like round 11 in a mandatory fight where he did have the stones to go fight him in Russia in Kovalev's hometown. Then he had to, worked his way back to that mandatory position. He didn't get any favors. He had to fight Arthur Beterbiev. He didn't get the cherry picking title against a lesser guy. He's fighting like a guy that was in his prime, and he got knocked out in another fight that was super exciting and that he had a chance to win. And then again, he gets picked to fight David Benavidez, and now he's going in with the ring with another, top guy. So, he didn't have a lot of good luck. He had the misfortune of having to fight the best, where there's levels of winning world titles. Guys cherry pick titles all the time. He didn't get to do that. But again, I don't think he is an elite light heavyweight. He's good. He seems like a nice guy. Obviously, he's got, some of the Brits behind him. But I just thought he was outclassed, outmatched. And David showed a lot. He's now 3-0 in the light heavyweight division against, 3 very reputable opponents in Vodzik and then David Morrell and now Anthony Yard. And look, he's coming into his own. They call him the monster, and there's a reason for that. He makes exciting fights. He's got a good chin. He has good offense. He wants to fight the best guys. He's motivated not only by the money, but also by, winning it. As he said, I interviewed him before this fight on a Zoom for our podcast also. I want to win as many titles as I can and beat the best guys and, cement my legacy. He wants to be talked about in today's era where when I mention or you mention or anybody mentions, the Terrence Crawfords or the Usyks or the Inoues, he'd want his name to be in that same conversation. And if you keep fighting the top guys and beating them in that style, that's going to happen. So you talk about now he wants to go up to cruiserweight. He said before the fight that if that was offered, he would go up. Now we know that even before the fight happened, that fight was a done deal. That fight, he's not just a matter of him saying, I want to go up and fight Zurdo. There's a signed contract between the sides. That fight is a done deal. It's going to be May 2nd in Las Vegas. It's going to be at it'll be at the T-Mobile Arena, I am told by sources on both sides. It'll be a big fight because you have a Mexican American in David Benavidez against a Mexican national in Zurdo Ramirez, who's got 2 of the cruiserweight titles. They're fighting on the Cinco de Mayo weekend. It'll be a great Mexican crowd that will turn up in Vegas like they're used to showing up in Vegas for big fights involving Mexicans. Obviously, Canelo has been the main guy in recent years, but they're doing this fight in Vegas. And, whenever Canelo decides to step away, the guy that's going to take over those dates in America anyway, for the Mexican holidays, the leading candidate would seem to be David Benavidez, who's got a growing fan base himself. And that's a heck of a fight.
I agree.
And we'll see.
Well, I will touch on it later, but obviously, maybe if he wins them titles, he'll fight Jaya Pattaya because Jaya Pattaya seems very pissed off at this moment in time that he ain't got the shot with Zurdo.
I totally get that. And, I'd love to see the Opataya fight against Zurdo. And that's a fight that Turki Al-Sheikh had talked about. I'm not sure why it didn't happen. There was mandatory things that guys had to do. And of course, Zurdo has been out of commission for a little while. After the June fight, he had a shoulder issue. He had surgery. He's going to take a tune-up fight, by the way, in January. That's going to be on a Golden Boy undercard. So even though the fight with David Benavidez is signed, he's got to get through that fight, win, not get injured again, and to make it a reality. And meanwhile, Opataya is fighting a mandatory that nobody ever heard of, nobody cares about, It's unfortunate, but you can only fight one guy at a time. And if you're Zerto, he's going to make a lot more money, it seems to me, to fight Benavidez here in a big Mexican fight in America, in front of a big crowd on a pay per view. With all respect to Obatai, he's just not known in the United States. It's just all there is to it. Doesn't mean he's still the number one cruiserweight. Even if Zerto beats Benavidez, it doesn't make him the number one cruiserweight. He's going to defend his belts, but Obatai is still the guy, and hopefully they can get it together at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like Jai Apateta. Now, quick one, Dan. 2 minutes left of this Zoom interview. I told you last interview, Jake Paul's a big man, but Anthony Joshua is enormous. What did you make of that? The press conference and the face to face.
I mean, the face to face was ridiculous because Jake Paul was looking at Anthony Joshua, and it was, you say, they went face to face or nose to nose, and they didn't go face to face or nose to nose. They went face to chest or chest to face. I mean, he was literally looking in the center of his chest. And Jake Paul even tweeted this. I don't know if he was just trying to make a joke or he was being serious, but there was the juxtaposition of his face off with Joshua, where there was a crazy size difference. And on the same post on his social media was the famous photo of the face off from Rocky IV, where it was, Sylvester Stallone playing Rocky Balboa with Drago, where it looked the same thing. Look, as I've thought about this all along, it's all well and good for them to do the fun stuff at the press conferences. In the end, if Anthony Joshua doesn't knock this dude out in like 1 or 2 rounds, people are going to think it's fixed.
You're probably right. And that's why we love this sport, because people always have something to say, whether good, bad, or ugly in the sport. And that's why we love it. Dan, as always, I appreciate your time. I love the way you talk about the sport, your passion for the sport. It just comes straight through you. And that's why I love talking to you. Now, everybody, you want to listen to Dan, you want to subscribe to his Substack, you want to subscribe to his YouTube channel, all the links to his stuff is below in the description. As always, Mr. Dan Rafael, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Well,
Take care,
thank
buddy.
you, Dan. See you in the next one. Thank you, mate.